The Scottish/Glasgow leadership hustings, UKIP leadership election, and candidates being given an opportunity to present themselves to you and to answer any questions that you may have. There are 4 candidates. I won't say anything about them as individuals because they'll get the chance to do that themselves. We've got Mike Hookem sitting on my left. We have Richard Braine sitting on my right. Freddy Vachha is coming, but I believe he will be about 10-15 minutes late, so he will get his chance to say his piece about himself when he comes in. And the 4th candidate, Ben Walker, won't be here because I believe he has his wife has given birth to a child, so he's got other things on his mind.
Oh, were there not originally 5 candidates?
Helena Windsor, as I understand it, has withdrawn from the race. And perhaps Mike will say something about that when his opportunity comes. The format is such that it's now just after 3 o'clock. We are going to have a sort of formal part of the meeting whereby each person will be given a chance to give them an introduction to themselves. We might have to do it a little bit differently if Freddy arrives late, as he is arriving late, but we'll just deal with that as and when that happens. And then there will be some questions. Now I've got a list of questions that, if you like, I wrote down because I don't know how many people are going to show up, and obviously it'd be somewhat embarrassing if we don't have any questions at all. So naturally I write some down, and now people are giving them. So the number of questions that we ask will depend on how much time we have. We've obviously booked this room, so there is a limit to the amount of time we can be here. I would anticipate, it's 3:05, that we will probably finish the formal bit of the meeting as a guess for about 4:30, certainly no later than 5 o'clock. There are a couple of things that I would just like to mention before we start the leadership bit. They're really just sort of tidying up exercises from a Scotland point of view, and if I don't say it now, we'll not say it at all. I should point out, after the meeting, I'm not in a rush away. I don't know who is. I assume the leadership candidates who have come from obviously several hundred miles away might have to leave promptly. I don't know that that's the case. I haven't asked them. But there's no rush away, so if anybody's got anything to talk about afterwards, they're more than welcome to do so. Right, a couple of things I wanted to mention, they're all up on the board. We do have a by-election for the Scottish Parliament, you may be aware of, for the Shetland Island, not Orkney, just Shetland, which is the 29th of August. Our candidate is Stuart Martin, who's here with us. If anybody wants to help in any way, whether it's financially or any other way, it would be most appreciated if you could do so, but it's not easy to get candidates for the Shetland Islands for obvious reasons. So, but we are fighting. It's a first past the post. It's not a list, so it's a first past the post, a normal parliamentary constituency for the Holyrood Parliament. Stuart's the candidate, and we're very grateful for him for being willing to step into the breach. Running alongside that, we've got a local by-election from North Lanarkshire in the Thornywood ward. To stand, you must either live or work in North Lanarkshire. As I do neither, I can't stand. But we're struggling bluntly to get a candidate. So if anybody knows, I spoke to a bloke last night that said he might stand, but the usual might and maybes and all the rest of it. If we can get a candidate for Thornywood, and if you know anybody that might have to be a UKIP member, of course, there has to be a measure of vetting, we'd be very grateful. So that's that. There's a couple of free books over there. I mean, when I say free, I mean free. I've been trying to get rid of them for a while. You can take them if you want. There's a wee yellow bucket there which has the function of, if you have any spare cash, it helps to pay for this room. Juries are very good to us. There's a lot of hotels that bluntly don't like UKIP, but juries are not amongst them, at least that's not our experience. So if you have, that's fine, no problem if you don't. And I can't see the other thing but that's the bucket. Oh yes, I'm just making the point afterwards, right, that if you're not in a rush away, we can have we can sit here, well, we can't sit here because they'll throw us out. We can sit downstairs and have a chat about whatever you want to chat about. And I don't, as I say, I can't speak for the candidates, how long they're able to wait, but I think it's understandable if they have to make journeys down south that they go. I think I've covered all that I should cover at this stage. Right, so what we'll... Right, what we'll do, this meeting is being filmed. There's nothing sinister in that. It's just the fact that if somebody figures out how to put it on YouTube, it'll probably end up on YouTube. So I'm just pointing that out to you. I'm not in any way. I think I'm legally obliged to tell you, so I'm telling you. Okay. Right. So on that note, it's not about me rabbiting on. I'm going to sit down. I will get round to the questions later on, but I think the starting point would be that both the candidates have an opportunity to give you a rundown on themselves. I assume that Freddy will come in and he will do that as well, but as I don't know exactly when that will be, we'll leave that for the moment. I don't think there's anybody have any objection who goes first or second. No. Right. So what I'll do is you've got 5 minutes. It's probably a wee bit longer than you normally get, but 5 minutes. We've got a wee bell which Janice will ring in her usual style.
And if you keep talking after 5 minutes, I'll keep ringing.
I'll ask then Mike Hookem to give you to say whatever you want about yourself, and when you're finished after 5 minutes, I'll ask Richard to do the same. Okay?
Thank you very much. It's been a long week, and I know Richard's been driving, same as I have, all over the country. So a lot of you know me, Mike Hookem. I've been in the party since 2007. I've held probably every senior position within the party, and once I was serving in the European Parliament, delegation leader, party whip and everything else. So I know how the party works, and I've been there, I've seen it. I'm speaking, when I speak, it's from within the tent. It's from, I saw what happened with people right from back from Farage and all the other leaders that we had since then. I think you people now, the membership of this party, have a task at hand. You're not only choosing a new leader, what you are going to choose is the direction in the future of this party. My direction is probably different to slightly different, I don't think that much different, but slightly different to Richard's. What I'm saying is, if we carry on down the road that we've been going in the last 18 months, we are unelectable. We will not get anywhere. We have this week lost 17 councillors. We did terrible in the council elections that's just passed. Yes, we got a few councillors, but we should have done a hell of a lot better than that. We should be scooping up the Labour vote, which we're not doing, because we're not talking to them. We're not giving them the policies that they want. You know, the ordinary working man or woman, I believe, their concerns are the NHS, the housing, the jobs, all of these things that concern the working man or woman. That's what we should be speaking about. We haven't been speaking about that. In the European elections, we wasn't talking to them about Europe. The party that made a sitting Prime Minister carry out a referendum that he didn't want. This was this party, it was you people that going out there campaigning, canvassing, leafleting. You people made David Cameron carry out that referendum. And we, as a party, won that referendum. You know, whatever all the other parties say, it was UKIP that did that. UKIP won that referendum. And I believe that we stopped talking about it. We've handed it over to another party and just stopped talking about it. We've gone down a completely different track. My track is to get back to common sense, get back to common sense policy, get back to winning, get back to gaining the 4 million votes that we had, not the 500,000 that we had in the European election, the last European election, but the 4 million votes. We can do that again, but we can do it as a team. I want to completely restructure the party, completely change it. I want to make the NEC a regional NEC, so it's regional representation. I want information. I want you people to have a chance of getting information from the ground level up to the leader, and the leader's office getting information back down to you people. And the only way we can do that is to get proper representation in the NEC. I want to see a policy body where you people, and there's many skills within this party, many skills that we've just ignored. I need to see a policy group there that is bringing on new policies brought from people like you the people that work in these industries and work in the sciences that actually can give very, very good quality policies. I think we can do it as a team. I think we can move forward. It can be very, very positive. We've been a winning team before, and we can do it once again. At the moment, we are 1% in the polls. We have to change direction. And as your leader, I would do that. I would change direction. I'd be listening to you people, and I would be making sure that this party, once again, becomes an electoral threat. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for coming. I know some of you have come from some distance to be here. I'm Richard Braine. I'm the chairman of the West London branch of UKIP. I've stood for the council, I've stood for parliamentary elections, I've stood for European parliamentary elections. Mike's absolutely right. The candidates that you have before you, we all agree on most things. There's a little bit of difference between us. How am I different from Mike? Well, one reason is this. I don't believe we should retreat 1 millimetre. I think that we have a fantastic manifesto, and refresh yourselves on the manifesto and you'll find it is full of excellent policies. We could flesh them out. We could actually make those policies more appealing, but we must not retreat. If we retreat, the mainstream media will just come after us. The idea that they're going to give us a break because we've become politically correct and we're not prepared to talk about taboo subjects, that isn't going to work. They're still going to come for us. They still hate us. They're still going to call us far right. I myself am actually far middle. I'm a far moderate. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of belonging to UKIP. And as Mike said, we've changed the world. We didn't change the world by taking over Parliament. We changed the world by putting pressure on, by growing steadily in the polls from a position of 1%. If you look at where UKIP was in 2000 and you said, we need common sense, we've got to stop pursuing policies that people aren't voting for, we would have changed back then to being a pro-EU party. And then we could have been popular and it would have been great. And I'm sure, as Mike is suggesting, we'd all be in government now. I don't believe that. I think it's nonsense. UKIP has always been a rebel party. We've been the party that says the unsayable, and we've changed the world by doing so. And we need to carry on doing that. Brexit isn't the only way that we can regain independence. We need to regain independence from other threats that we face as a country. British culture is under threat enormously from many factors, from resurgent Marxism, from data tyranny, with everybody collecting every piece of information that you can imagine about us and making it eventually impossible for us to rebel, for us to actually challenge power and government and the authority. But we need to keep challenging the authority of the government. We need to keep pointing out where they've gone wrong and how we can make things better. So we mustn't retreat. We must believe in our principles, our policies, everything that makes us UKIP, our party culture. And that is still a rebellious culture. And I know that independence in our party name isn't just about independence from the EU, it's also about independence of thought. And we think freely and we discuss freely. We have freedom of speech so that we can discuss things freely and not have our minds controlled by the authorities and by the culture of political correctness that is taking root in this country. So we need to fight that. Mike's talked about the grassroots. The question really is how. The idea that just magically making the NEC a regional body and that's going to transform everything, I don't believe. I've got a set of software tools and software plans that's going to give you, the members of the party, the tools to actually deliver that result, and I can talk to you about that later.
Okay, we asked for people to email questions in traditional fashion. Nobody bothered. Okay, I have to tell you. So I had written down some questions in case nobody asked, but since we've come into the room, people have given me some questions and the option's still open. I'd rather you write them down so I don't say them wrongly. There are obviously issues, elephants in rooms, which are a little difficult to talk about because legal solicitors are involved. So I am going to try and ask as many of those questions as time will permit. There is no question of trying to stop questions being asked. I'm not in favour of that. Even questions which might be kind of direct. I think these two gentlemen will answer any questions you have. But in order to do it in an orderly fashion, I've got a few of them here and I'll ask them as best as I can, and we'll give, I think it's only fair to give each candidate 2 minutes to answer each question, and we'll get through as many as we can. If your question isn't asked, then we may have a point at the end where I'll ask nicely if there is a question that needs to be asked, but I'm not deliberately censoring anything just in case there's any misunderstandings. Well, the lad has already spoken to Freddy Vachha, that would do no harm. Right, the first question which I've got, which is perhaps, I know that if both Richard and Mike have been to these hustings throughout the country, they're probably, with the best will in the world, been asked more or less the same questions. Each of them are similar questions. This one I think is a bit unique.
Sorry, see before you do that, Kyle's got a statement from Ben. If you want to read
Yeah,
that out.
someone in his campaign,
Yeah.
George, he sent that.
I have to read this out for Ben.
Yeah,
Right.
he's got it
Ben's
read out.
opening statement.
Okay, fair enough. I shall read Ben's statement out. Okay, Ben Walker being the candidate who's not here for reasons that I think I've explained. Dear members, unfortunately I am having to send this statement in my absence today, for which I apologise. Last night, after rushing back from the Birmingham hustings to Bristol with 30 minutes to spare, my partner gave birth to her second daughter. Today I will have to dedicate to my family and talking through UKIP's policies with their newborn. I was looking forward to meeting you all, and I very much hope I can in the near future. UKIP is in crisis. This year we experienced our largest net loss of councillors in a local election and our worst European election result since 1994. The party has lost all major donors, and unsurprisingly members are deserting UKIP in their thousands as we plummet below 1% in the polls. If we are to save our party, we must address these cold, hard facts immediately. UKIP must have a positive and radical vision for post-Brexit Britain. We are the party for hard-working, patriotic men and women, the majority who work long hours, pay their taxes, and like us, oppose the politically correct agenda of the Westminster elite. In the EU referendum, the British people demonstrated their belief in this country. Since then, they have been browbeaten by the political and media establishment, peddled by the BBC. By staying true to our core values, UKIP can lead the way with a fresh and positive message. A crucial element of UKIP's past success has been you, the members. For little in return, grassroots members have donated their money and turned out to campaign. UKIP must go back to its grassroots by refocusing the party into a local campaigning machine, contesting and winning council seats. I have been pushing this vision of UKIP since 2017, and I'm disappointed to have seen that nothing has changed in this regard. I will prioritise and properly fund UKIP's network of branches while drawing on the experience of members for future party policy. My leadership manifesto has already been written by branch officers. I have been elected at multiple levels of local government as a parish, town and district councillor and as mayor, alongside having been a vice chair of my local authority. I know this can work. In areas of the country where UKIP has achieved unprecedented success, branches have been ignored and regrettably collapsed. Thanet, Thurrock and Hartlepool, to name just a few. Under my leadership, I will focus my efforts reviving these long-lost branches and raising essential funds in target areas, ensuring we do not squander future golden opportunities. I am honoured to have served our great country as a leading hand in the Royal Navy. I have served in the Afghanistan War and toured the Falklands. Members of the armed forces and the majority of the British public have one principal thing in common: they believe in Britain. If you elect me as the new UKIP leader, I will show them that we are the party that believes in Britain and is ready to represent them. So that, just for the record, that's Ben Walker's statement. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Okay, the questions. The first question that I'm kind of picking is probably... Oh, right.
Follow the question. Thank you very much.
Certainly, thanks, Gerard. Right. Whoa. Right, the first question is probably, I'm not saying it's the most important or whatever, but I think it's unique to us since we're here. And it's very simple, because I preface it by saying maybe, I'm not saying this is right, I'm just saying maybe there is a perception that UKIP is largely a South of England party. And we're in Scotland, obviously. So the question to each leadership candidate is, how important under your leadership would be the maintenance of the union? The first question I'll ask Mike to speak first to, and the second one I'll ask Richard to speak second, if that's all right. So the question, just to repeat, how important under your leadership would be the maintenance of the union, by which I mean the United Kingdom? Mike.
You just said the words, United Kingdom. That's what we are, the United Kingdom Independence Party. To me, it's very important that we keep a united bond, a Kingdom, Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland. I think we should keep together. I may be totally wrong on this because, again, it's you people on the ground that can educate the likes of me. I don't think there would be a lot of appetite to, in Scotland for independence. I may be completely wrong on that, but I think we are stronger together. We need to stay together, and as a leader, I would do everything I could to keep it together, to keep a bond between us all that's gone on for hundreds of years. So it's very important to me.
Richard.
Well, I agree with Mike. Some unions work and others don't. Sometimes it's about scale, sometimes it's about culture and belonging together. This union between Scotland and the rest of the UK has gone on for hundreds of years, and it's been enormously successful. And there's no question that the British Empire couldn't have been what it was without Scotland. So that union is a union that is a proven, trusted union that works. The European Union is a very different one. It was invented by bureaucrats and people who had some, frankly, quite fascistic ideas about a future for Europe. And that union has been a disaster for many countries in Europe, not just the UK. So my view is that the union between Scotland and England and Wales and Northern Ireland is absolutely crucial. I believe that when people vote in a referendum, their vote should be honoured. And we've all seen what's happened to this EU vote, and I think probably everybody in this room is very angry that the last 3 years have been spent trying to obstruct the will of the people in our parliament, and they've refused to actually honour our vote even though they'd promised that they would. So we should all be angry about that. Equally, in I think it was 2013, we had a vote, Scotland had a vote on whether to stay in the union with the UK. Most people you meet, or it seems to me that most people you meet in England have enormous affection for Scotland, and in fact Scottish relatives. My own grandmother was called Stuart, and she had Scottish blood. I see myself as British. I have Irish blood, Scottish blood, English blood. So it's a great union. It's been successful. The people of Scotland voted for it, and we need to uphold their vote, their choice to stay in the United Kingdom. The constituency for the vote, the EU vote, was all of the UK. The UK was a member of the EU, not Scotland, but the UK. And even if it had been won by 5 votes this way or 5 votes that way, the constituency, the UK, our great historic nation, actually chose to leave the EU, and we need to honour that and also honour the referendum that Scotland had. It may be that sometime in the distant future it will make sense to have another referendum, but I think that it's only 6 years ago that we had that referendum and the people spoke then, and we need to honour that. So let's uphold the union, let's be one country together, and all this talk of, by the way, I must point out that there's Tony Blair and the EU that put in place the devolved governments, and I do suspect that part of it was to try to break up the UK for the sake of Brussels, for the sake of the EU, so that they could continue to rule over us in a totalitarian way without having to face opposition from a really big player like the UK, and we are a big player. So that's, I think, mainly why that was done. Scotland traditionally has been well represented in Westminster in the past, and I hope it will continue to be so, whatever happens in the future.
Hello, Freddy. Right.
I apologise to all of you. I've got no conspiracy theories to offer you. I overslept. My alarm was insufficient to wake me up, and the hotel somehow got confused.
Right. I'll tell you where we are, Freddy. This is Freddy. I won't say anything about him because he'll no doubt say it himself. Freddy Vachha, is that correct pronunciation? He will be given 5 minutes to give you his spiel, just like Mike and Richard. You'll ring the bell. He will then be given an opportunity to ask the question about the union, which the other two have answered. Should we shut that door? No, it's got a hook at the back of it. And then we'll move on from there. Are you all set to go, Freddy?
I'm all set to go.
5 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Freddy's going to talk about Freddy.
Welcome, friends. My name is Freddy Vachha. Some of you may have received emails from me in the past. Some of you may have received too many emails from me in the past, but some of you will also not know who I am. I'm the regional chairman of UKIP for London and have been so for getting on for 4 years. I'm a UKIPer through and through. I joined UKIP because it fitted. I've never joined another political party before. It seems inconceivable that I would have done so and that I would do so in the future. I am a physicist and mathematician with first-class degrees in them and an accountant, only because I wished to learn accountancy so I could start businesses. I've been running businesses since I was 15, and for those of you who are discerning, you may realize I'm slightly more than 15 years of age now. I'm 61. I trained with Ernst & Young and Young Chartered Accountants. I since then have pretty much been working non-stop. I am working class. I work and then I work. Fortunately, I sleep for only 4.5 hours a day, otherwise my CV, which has been given to you, would have to be fiction. It is in fact absolutely true, correct, accurate, and incomplete. It is the brief version thereof. Rather than speak about myself, I leave you to sense of humour is absolutely necessary in this job. It is vital. Without it, one would go absolutely cuckoo. The bit with a shade of yellow in it is a description of me, very flattering, by Stuart Agnew, arguably the most respected MEP UKIP has had, who's known me for 5 years.
Non-certain.
Arguably. Now, what are my qualities to lead UKIP in these difficult times? One, recognising that we are in very difficult times, not trying to make any excuses about it. We're in awful times over here. We've got to get clear blue sky between us and the Brexit Party. I'd refer you to the pre-penultimate line written by Stuart Agnew in the yellow bit, which is, I'm the leader who Nigel Farage would least like UKIP to have, because I'll take the battle to him, and I'm faster than him, and I'm funnier than him, and I have more fighting spirit than him, and I'm willing to take the bits that he will not touch. For example, the great big elephant, I can't say gorilla, otherwise I get arrested nowadays, elephant in the room, called immigration. Immigration's links to everything. You in Scotland are relatively lucky, but little more than an hour ago I was in England, and that in that benighted country, it is, ignoring city-states, it is the 4th most densely populated country in the world. How did we get to this? Above it are only Bangladesh, South Korea, and Taiwan, formerly Formosa. England is more crowded than India, far more crowded than China. And of course, the policies are let more in. And Nigel won't touch this subject, he's afraid. I don't know why he's afraid. He perhaps shouldn't be, but he is afraid. And we're going to bang on this, because have no doubts, our main poaching area is the Brexit Party. It's obvious in the polls. They were nowhere, they were at 0, and we were about here. Now we've gone down to there, and they're up there. We want to get stuff from them, because most of these people agree with us, but they just disagree with the direction. I haven't heard the speeches of my predecessors, my predecessor speakers, but I'm confident that Gerard Batten was not maligned. However, he has made a wrong turn, several wrong turns, and these are of a fundamental nature. We know he's not a bad guy, but the public out there, the ones whose votes are important, they've classified us as some sort of horrible person, which he isn't. We have to cut from that. We have to just cut. It's too expensive in terms of time for us to reinvent and persuade them. Unfortunately, it isn't. They don't play fair. I have been on any number of media interviews where they've tried this, that, and the other with me, picking the agenda, Tommy Robinson, this, that, and the other, raping women depending on the supply of beer, and all sorts of awful and horrible things. But I want to talk about Brexit and the future of the country. Of course, they don't want to let me do that, because they know I'll be good at doing it. Now, was that a warning or a...
I think that's
the end.
That's the end.
That's the end. All right, vote for me, because you get a fighter who knows how to fight and who continuously wins. Read the CV. Thank you so much.
You do, however, you have the opportunity to answer one question which both Mike and Richard have been asked. You've got 2 minutes. It's probably a question you've not been asked in previous hustings. I'll read it carefully. How important, under your leadership, would be the maintenance of the union, as in the United Kingdom?
This is so easy.
2 minutes.
This is totally easy. Of course it's totally important. I mean, it's worked. It's one of the unions that work. We do need some adjustments to the Barnett formula, though. I love Scotland. I used to be forever up there, and I remember travelling with a girlfriend once where she went to sleep in the car just as we were starting off in South London, and when she woke up, it was the Kyle of Lochalsh. So, and it was still dark. those are the good old days. I love Scotland. I know it almost like the back of my hand. I know ins and outs. I don't like living in cities, or given a chance, I would abandon our wonderful capital city of London as done and move further north. I don't want to be in cities. I've lived in cities most of my life. I love Scotland. We're not going to let you get free of us. We need you there without any borders or other things, or all the lovely things coming through. The journey was absolutely wonderful, except I had too little time in which to do it. It only started to get complicated around Hamilton. If you want to quiz me afterwards about knowledge of Scotland, I'll put a whole lot of them to shame, and I'll put probably half of you to shame as well, because I love Scotland. It's going to be part of our union, and we're going to stay part of our union, no matter what the WEEC says. I mean, to begin, I know what to say to the WEEC, but the cameras are running. Thank you.
Thank you, Freddie. Thank you. Right, okay. That's us after that. Yes, John, sorry.
Before you move on, just one point. One phrase I would like to banish from UKIP speak is the phrase north of the border. There is no
What border?
Yes.
What border?
nobody says north.
No, I think that's a fair point, John, as always. No.
Consider it banished.
Right. We're now back up to speed. Richard will answer this question first, if that's all right. Mike second, and then Freddie last. This is from Otto, if you don't mind me identifying you. Now, you don't need, I'm going to read the question as I think you mean it, but don't give me a long story if I didn't, because we've not got that much time. Obviously, we're in a strange world politically. We've got Boris, presumably going to be leader, maybe not, but presumably on Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is. We've got the Brexit Party and Farage and all the rest of it, with all the possibilities that involves. UKIP under a bit of siege. I don't think that's unfair to say. Otto's question is, if elected as leader, what would UKIP's unique selling point be? Is that
Under your leadership, what would UKIP's unique selling point?
fine? Richard,
Yeah.
2 minutes.
Well, UKIP is a party that has caused a revolution, not just in British politics, but in European politics, and in fact in global politics. And we've achieved that because we told the truth that no one else dared to speak. We're patriotic. That's the love that dare not speak its name anymore. You cannot love your country anymore. That has become some kind of politically incorrect sentiment. And that's wrong. We have actually brought the world back to thinking about nationhood and what it means and why people should love their countries. Marine Le Pen said it's not about left and right anymore, it's about patriots and globalists. And we've seen this book written about somewhere people and anywhere people. And we need to reassert, and we have reasserted, the principle that a country can look after itself, stand on its own 2 feet, be independent, maintain its borders, and contribute to the world and trade with the world at the same time. We will continue that political philosophy, but what we mustn't do is give in to political correctness and start retreating. UKIP is a party that has never retreated from saying the things that you're not supposed to say. We're like the ancient Cynic philosophers, Diogenes, who told Alexander the Great, when Alexander the Great said, "You've pleased me, I grant you a wish." And he said, "Can you move to the left a bit because you're in the way of the sunshine?" We need to continue doing that. We're the party, the punk party, that says what everybody thinks but dare not say. We need to continue doing that. That's how we change the world, regardless of whether we get into Parliament or not.
Thank you, Richard. Mike.
Much of what Richard has said, but I think as a party, we have to be a party of the people, a party of the working man and woman. I think they're now looking for a home, because many of the people I speak to, because I come from Hull, which is hard Labour, and they say, "I've voted Labour all my life, but I will not vote Labour no more while that idiot's in charge." And I think they're looking for a home. They're looking for somewhere that they can put their vote. I think we should be that party. We should offer them a vision of what Great Britain should be, and it should be the working class people speaking on the issues that, as I've said earlier on, speaking on the issues that really do matter to them. And it's all about what do the working man want. He just wants to go to work, he wants to have a few beers, a few fags, he wants to make sure his kids have got a school, he wants to make sure there's a GP, make sure there's a hospital. It's simple things, it's a simple message that the working man and woman want, and we should be the party that's delivering that. And that would be my message to the working man and woman. We are the party that will support you and defend you, and you need to vote for us. And I think if we give them that message and that vision, I think we can start bringing that vote back to us. You know, the millions out there that are looking for a home. We should be that home.
And I was fortuitous to cover this point in my opening speech. The USP for us is that we speak the truth, and I would attack on the matters which are of great interest to the public and UKIPers, which are crime, immigration, factors like this, the fact that you have to time your call to the doctors to the second at about 8:30 or 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, otherwise you don't get an appointment that day. All this nonsense, which is all correlated to the elephant in the room, which they won't mention, which is immigration. And that it has got out of control. Immigration is exactly like water. Too little, you die of thirst, and too much, you drown, and we are way over the drown limit. We are banging against the needle's about to break. This is preposterous. How did we get into this position? I can speak about this with great freedom, more freedom perhaps than anyone else can, because while I am of English and Parsi stock, I am a first-generation immigrant myself. And all this twaddle about that it's about nastiness and racism and all that is all rubbish. They're just trying to hide it, and they call us racist or far right simply because that means they've lost the argument. Now, the other thing, Richard being very learned, mentioned Diogenes. I'll mention Plato's cave. Plato's cave is a construct whereby a number of people think they understand reality, but they've created an explanation which is complete balderdash, which is absolute nonsense. I've not got enough time to explain Plato's cave, but I'm sure all of you know it better than I do. We are the ones who are not in Plato's cave. We see the world for what it is, and we understand what's happening to us, and we understand how we've got to stop us getting to what otherwise will happen. I am a mathematician. I assure you certain changes, demographic in nature, are coming. Even if immigration and emigration and conversions and refugees were all stopped, refugees, that's within 10 sets of quotation marks. It's purely coming from birth rate on its own. But how do we get them there? That is the question. You need somebody who's got the gift of the gab, who's got nerve, audacity, and a tiny little bit of charisma. Thank you.
Right, quite a few questions. I'm certainly trying to avoid what you might call the slightly controversial ones, but I'm also wanting to deal with some very...
Please. We want the controversial ones. Chuck the other ones out. That's what we'll be facing. Leaders got to deal with that. It's what they want. Throw that. Chuck it out. I mean, do you want the illegal immigrants thrown out, or do you want them tortured before throwing out? That's a bad one.
We have a different idea of the word controversial, but never mind. Right. Well, we will... Let's come to this question then, which is Ken Thompson's, who's our chairman in Mid-Scotland and Fife. I'll read it as he has given it to me, and if I've misread it, maybe you'll be kind enough to correct me, right? So the question is this. Well, as he's given it in the email, which of the candidates would lead from the front like Gerard Batten did on thorny issues? Would they take a more compliant tone to gain favour with the utterly biased, corrupt and contemptible, I think MSM's mainstream media? Is that what you meant to say? Is that question broadly understood? Just on the basis, it's not meant to be the Freddy show, but I think it's your turn to do the first 2 minutes, and then I'll go to Richard and then Mike. Is that okay? Yeah. Freddy, off you.
I don't know any other way to lead except from the front. My mum said I had, where there's no sense, there's no feeling, which is an old-fashioned way of saying that I don't know what fear is. I calculate, I trade on the stock market regularly. Each day I can potentially lose half of what I've got. So I'm making risk-reward analyses all the time. And this is something like that. Because public perception does matter, but we cannot allow the mainstream media to dictate the agenda because we know what their agenda is. I, in fact, would say that this question was slightly of the sort of, do you enjoy beating your husband type. As in, it's actually a false premise. Gerard has recently not been leading from the front. That is the whole point. He has retreated. He wouldn't come to my London Hustings. This is the time he was on there. He was delegating everything. The poor man has devoted 27 years to this. Let him off the hook, yeah? So rather than bringing Gerard into every question, let him have his retirement. He sent me, possibly by mistake, photographs of his 30th wedding anniversary stuff, and that was about a year and a half ago. I've known Gerard for 5 years. I've known of him for 15 years, but he's known of me for 5 years. He was my MEP in London, that's simply why. But this is during my involvement with UKIP. He's a good, fine man of integrity. However, leading from the front is not what he's currently doing. Of course I would lead from the front. I enjoy it. It's considered a matter of good manners to give the mainstream media, note this is a singular noun now, because you can all treat them as all the same sky. Whatever the band is, the Braine, the Times, the BBC, Sky, it doesn't really matter what they're called. They're all one and the same thing. The creatures of the same, creatures who have been bought by the same coin. And we do not trust them, we do not like them, we do not want them, but we have to deal with them. And therefore hiding away from them is not an option. We take the battle to them. Now, on this Tommy matter, I had the BBC take this on 3 times with me. Each time they were handed their guts for garters by me, because we can't be defensive. I said to them, I don't want to discuss Tommy's criminal record and other things. Conceded. He's been a bad lad. But are you saying there is no central angst to what he's talking about? What really exercised him? Forget the way he's done it. Wrong and inappropriate as often is. That there was organised, systematic gang rape of tens of thousands of young girls. So they can't win on this front. We've got truth on our side. Thank you, Donald.
Richard, did you want me to repeat the question, or do you?
No, I've got it. Thank you.
Right.
Hands up if you've never made a joke in poor taste. Okay, good for you. I'm very happy to join you in that number. About a month ago, Freddy went on the TV and then proceeded to apologise to an assembled group of politically correct people for a poor taste joke made by somebody in the party. In fact, a joke made before he was in the party. I refuse to apologise for that joke, and I won't apologise for it. We have to, and by the way, Mike went on the TV and he didn't actually agree with UKIP policy. He wasn't prepared to stand up for our manifesto and what it says. He didn't understand why it was important to stand up for it, and he had a disastrous interview. I won't do that. I'm going to go on the television and I'm going to defend the things that we all believe in. I'm going to defend our manifesto. I'm going to defend whoever is leader of this party, whether it's me or someone else. I will go on the media and I will defend our party, our leader, and everything that we believe in. And if they attack me, I'll attack back harder. And if you don't believe that, go and look at the interviews I've done in the last 2 months and you'll see it. Me calling out the mainstream media, the BBC, for protecting, for instance, Jimmy Savile for decades when he was a prolific paedophile. They knew all about it. So I will attack back and harder, because we need to be able to make bad jokes. This should be a free country where people are not excoriated for making bad jokes. As regards Gerard, he served this party for 27 years. He's been the best leader we've had, frankly, in a long time. And he saved the party when it was going bankrupt. He should have been able to stand. It's undemocratic. You, the members, should be choosing who the leader is, not the NEC. And so that's a disgrace. On our way up here, we drove under a bridge in Scotland, just over the border, and there was a man with a big sign on his van parked on a bridge, and all it said in huge letters was, Tommy.
Right. But you'll get your rebuttal. Just a minute. Can give Mike an extra 15 seconds instead of right? Do you want to say your bit?
Because everybody else went over
Right,
the 2 minutes.
right,
I'll just
okay.
keep ringing the bell to drown you out
Right.
if you go over the 2 minutes.
Right, Mike. Sorry,
You
you're.
can have an extra 15.
Right, so now we're getting down, so we're attacking each other now. So right, okay. I'm going to speak on the many TV interviews I did defending Gerard, defending him when he went against the NEC's decision to keep Tommy for the present out of the party. Gerard said, I will honour that, I will honour the decision of the NEC, and the very next day he made him his advisor. So I went on TV on many occasions defending Gerard and saying that Tommy wasn't a member of the party, he was Gerard's advisor. So I've defended Gerard on that. I've done TV interviews across America, across Europe, across the world, many of them. On these 2 disastrous interviews that I did, I went in on there knowing I was going to get asked about Tommy and was going to get asked about Benjamin. I was asked about a policy that was tucked away at the back of the policy document that I hadn't really seen. And when I looked at it, when I'm looking at it, it was undefendable. I couldn't defend it. I couldn't defend that policy, and I couldn't defend the policy of Paul Nuttall when he brought in about banning the burqa. You can't. How are you going to ban the burqa down the high street? It's ridiculous. You can wear whatever you like down the high street. You can ban face coverings in the bank and in the post office. That's a completely different thing. You can defend that. You've got to go on TV and be able to defend something. But when I couldn't defend this, I put my hands up and I said, that's it. This is ridiculous. We're not talking about Europe. We're not talking about the EU. We're talking about Muslims, and we're talking about ridiculous policies. So I said, that's it, Gerard, and I resigned as deputy leader. Benjamin, right, yes, he made a joke 3 years before. If he'd have gone on TV and said, sorry, that was before I become a politician or got into politics, we'd have got away with it. But he didn't. He went on the TV and he made it even worse by saying, well, if I was drunk, I might have raped her. You know, he's supposed to be a politician, we're supposed to be gaining votes. Rape is not a joke in my book. Rape is used as a weapon across many parts of Africa. Rape is terrible. Ask any woman that's been raped. It's a terrible thing. I won't defend somebody making a bad joke about rape. And especially when you're not in the public eye and you're supposed to be a politician, that to me is undefendable, and I won't defend it. It was a bad joke. It shouldn't have been. He should have apologised for it, and then that would have been it. We could have walked away from it, but he wouldn't do that. You know, I'm sorry. I made two bad interviews out of thousands of interviews that I've done, two bad ones, and you know I hold my hands up. There's nobody beat herself up more than me over those two interviews. But I have done dozens and dozens and dozens of interviews and defended Gerard many, many times.
A 15-second rebuttal. 15 seconds.
Right, Carl
means
Benjamin
15
did not
seconds.
make the words which I said I disassociated myself from before he was a member. Richard is just wrong. Please stop doing this. He made it after he'd become a member. He was an MEP candidate, and he said the stuff basically that she was too ugly for him to rape. He'd have to be very drunk to do so, but there wasn't enough beer. There's no sense in this. Winston Churchill, who often quotes, said, never, 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 never yield to superior force. Never, never give in, except in matters of honour and good sense. There is no honour in good sense in talking about raping women. This is as simple as that. We're a party of law and order. How on earth are we to do this? This is just stupidity. Do not hamper me, Richard, by having me handcuffed.
Well, hang on.
Use your best attack speaker and let him be free. I'll attack him and take the worry to them, but not defending, not raping women because they're too ugly. That's ridiculous.
Do you want a rebuttal of anything that Mike
yes,
said?
please. My view is that
What Mike said.
Yes, I will. My view is that both Freddie and Mike have actually misquoted Carl and failed to understand what his jokes were actually about. But at any rate, we're talking about things said casually, which are jokes. And the problem is, if we go down this path, then we're going down the path that the media and the politically correct culture in this country wants us to go down. And we're going to be apologising and scraping for everything. And we're never going to do what we've done in the past, which is to stand up and actually say what people are thinking, regardless of whether it's outrageous.
Okay, do you want to
thinking about not raping women?
No, hang on. Do you want to rebut the rebuttal?
We'll be rebutting all the time.
That's the rest
I
of
don't
it.
agree. I don't agree with Richard. You know, if you're making comments, you know, make sure that if you're in the public eye,
Why has Carl agreed to retraction to me? He's agreed to retract if I become leader.
Let me chair it if you don't mind.
Or win a debate with me.
As I say, if nothing else, that little spat I think is showing that we're not hiding anything, right? Certainly not deliberately. But the next question is perhaps of a extremely important. Might seem a bit dull. I don't think it is dull, and I'm sure they've been asked this before, but it's very important. One thing is certain. If UKIP has a future, and certainly has a positive future, there's one thing that I'm sure we all agree it needs, and that's cash. So the question is, clearly the party, I'll ask Mike first if that's all right. Clearly the party requires funds and donors. How would you address this issue? Mike.
Yeah, we have been asked this all the time. Quite clearly, most of our major donors have left. They've walked away. They've gone to the Brexit Party, or they've just abandoned the party altogether. We've got to bring those back. We do have a few donors that are still left, but they're being asked more and more to bail the party out. We have to get money into this party. Hopefully, with a new leader on board, that will bring new membership in. But that is not, the be-all and end-all. It's got to be addressed. We have a shop that was spoke about last night. I think Darryl said it's bringing about 20,000 in, something like that. So that's some money coming in. But we've got to get the big donors back, the Christopher Mills, these people that put big amounts of cash into the party. And the only way we're going to do that is if we're an electoral threat. If we start winning again, Nobody bets on a loser. We have to be a winning party. And to do that, we've got to change direction. We've got to start winning council seats from the beginning. That's where we've got to start, at council seats. Just as the Lib Dems did, they was dead in the water. Start winning the council seats and work our way back and get into Westminster seats. And we can do that. And once we start doing that, people will see that they can invest in us, and they will invest in us, and that's where we get the money back. That's where we get the big money men coming back again. And these big money men, Christopher Mills put hundreds of thousands of pounds into this party, and he's walked away. And you know, I think we need to get his calibre of donor back again, and the only way we're going to do that is by being an electoral threat and a winning team once again.
Richard.
Yes.
Did you want me?
Thank you.
You got the question?
I got the question. Thank you. In 2016, I went to a London regional committee meeting of UKIP not long before the referendum. I was very busy at that time. My branch raised £10,000 and we printed 500,000 leaflets and we printed 30,000 car stickers that just say leave. And I went to this meeting, I had an example of this, and I spoke very briefly at the meeting. Someone came up to me after the meeting and he said, I've got some money aside for your project. I don't want to give it to the party because it's like putting it into a bottomless pit. I fear it will be wasted. But your project is a good idea. Here's a cheque for £1,000. Mike talks about winning, but the question is how? How are we actually going to get people to see that it's worth putting money in? And the answer is tangible projects. They need to see that there's a project, they need to know how much it's going to cost to carry it out, and they need to see that it has a real hope of actually delivering improvement for the party, even if it's only incremental. I have been working on canvassing software. The canvassing software works. We used it in a local election about 3 months ago. I'm providing it to the party. I've spoken to donors about that. They want to help with other software projects. We're going to have a policy forum that's going to put you straight in touch with the leadership of the party, not through organisers and officers and all of this structure, but you're going to have the ability to vote on what people in the party say on forums so that good policies and good ideas get voted on, and the best ones are put right in front of the leadership and the NEC. We're going to have a leaflet system. We're going to have all kinds of software that we need to make the party run better, which means tools for you in your hands, on your smartphones, on your laptops, so that you can actually do the job much more efficiently than you have been. You're not wasting your time putting leaflets through the doors of people who support momentum. Thank you.
What is needed is large donors, and currently they are not willing to touch us because they're toxic. There are also two associated problems. I'm giving it to you as it is, not as Richard wants it to be. I would want it to be as well, but we are currently where we are. These big donors they're so toxic that they would need buffers between us, so they would put it into trust funds, and the trust funds would give us and things like that. But we have got electoral legislation which makes lots of things criminal. We have to clearly identify who the true beneficial ultimate source of the money to us is. Moreover, we don't want to have sinister sources of money who then expect to have influence. We know in our hearts we're true and pure, and I certainly am, and I don't want to be manipulated by some large donor who has got another agenda which is at odds with UKIP's agenda. And believe you me, these people often are. We have to look beyond the surface. We need to know exactly who we're dealing with. But we have to be here, I'm totally with Mike, we have to be, and with Richard, I'm sure, an electoral threat to do so. It's how to become an electoral threat. We have to have a leader who leads, who puts the fear in the mainstream media. There has to be what's often called a sky-level campaign going on. The door-to-door is important as well, and targeted door-to-door with Richard's software, which we would certainly use with me as a leader. There's no question of it. This is a false dichotomy. It's not a choice. Richard has said it'd be freely available. If you look at page 2, line 17 of my brief CV, you will find the details of my software house, which is a jolly sight more interesting than most other people's would have been. And we've done all this hard software. Software is a key to a problem, but it's not the entire solution. Getting the large donors there. My own contacts within the city, which came because I trained with Ernst & Young, are there, but they have spoken frankly, we need to get you in place for 6 months, get people forgetting all the Tommy and Carl Benjamin stuff and all that, as being we are a party of that. Look, I want Tommy to be there. I want Carl Benjamins to be working for UKIP, but not talking about silly subjects, doing hard-hitting stuff, which he will start off with a 1-hour interview with me, no holds barred, on whether freedom of speech should have holds barred. At the end of it, I suspect he will want some limits on freedom of speech. Now, thank you for listening to me. We need to get the money. This is utterly common ground and true. Thank you.
Right, the next question I'm going to kind of amalgamate John Ferguson's, which with I think Kyle's. I'll read it out just so that you're happy with it. The preface is that I'm on the NEC for my sins, and I personally worked with Gareth Bennett in Wales and Paul Girvin and Johnny Lavery in Northern Ireland to persuade Gerard Batten that UKIP's policy should be the abolition of all the devolved assemblies. So that was Northern Ireland Stormont, which was pretty well abolished anyway, the Welsh Assembly and the Scottish Parliament, Holyrood, whatever you want to call it. That is my personal view, and I only say that because it's relevant to the question. And it took us a bit of time, but we eventually got Gerard to agree to that. And as things stand, that is official UKIP policy, to get rid of the devolved assemblies. But we're obviously in a different scenario now, and so John has asked a very reasonable question, which I think kind of slightly similar to Kyle's, which is basically for the leadership candidates. I don't think you'll have been asked this, and maybe in Wales, I don't know if you've been there yet, but it's to do with the devolved assemblies, and in specific terms, UKIP's policy on devolved assemblies, whether we keep them as they are, or similar to what they are, or whether we get rid of them altogether. Is that sign of...
That's right, well, it's this differentiation between devolution and assemblies.
Right.
There's an assumption, I believe, certainly in England, because you guys are down there, may not have the appreciation in Ireland and Wales and Scotland. There's a presumption that these things are joined at the hip, devolution and these assemblies, parliaments. I don't believe that they are myself.
Well, okay. Well, what we'll do is I will read. I'm just trying to. Kyle, you. I know you don't agree with me on this, which is fine. You think UKIP should support the current situation, as I understand correctly, with the devolved assemblies. Is that right? Is that a representation?
I just think abolishing is
Right.
to go down.
Well, hang on.
We need to have this wrong. Come on,
No, but
it's our turn now.
We've
understood.
Right, okay. The question then, in simple terms, is to try and combine what John is saying with what Kyle is saying, with maybe other people are saying, is you, as a prospective leader of UKIP, are you in favour of A, abolishing, or B, continuing with the devolved assemblies in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland? Is that reasonable?
Yep.
Right. Richard, do you mind answering
Yes.
that?
My view is that it should be down to the people who actually live in those countries. Here we have a leaflet that I've designed for a by-election that's taking place right now in Wales, in Brecon and Radnorshire, and it's one of the least densely populated constituencies in Wales and England. Obviously Scotland rules that roost, but in the policies that we put forward as a party, scrap the assembly. We know that the Welsh voted 50.3% in favour, 49.7% against having an assembly. It was very close after a lot of money was spent and a lot of propaganda. So we campaign locally in Brecon and Radnorshire to scrap it. It may be that Scottish people have a different view, and that UKIP in Scotland sees it differently. The Welsh Assembly is not exactly the same thing as the Scottish Assembly. And so as a result, I think this is down to the individual nations within the United Kingdom to make their own minds up about it, and UKIP should be sensitive to what those countries feel about it. If UKIP members want to actually campaign one way or the other, then I think UKIP locally in those regions should try to find a consensus, and UKIP locally campaign against their own assembly.
Mike, do you want to take that?
I agree with Richard. I was in the NEC meeting actually when it was put forward, and I read the document that Gareth did. I think Gareth did a lot of work on that, and I read it, and it was a very good document. And we agreed at that meeting that we should push that forward, and I think it's a very good idea. I mean, the Northern Ireland one, I don't think it's sat for the last 2 years, and these people are getting full pay for doing nothing. You know, so it needs to be got rid of. And I know Gareth and Donald was very much on the side of campaigning on the very grounds of getting rid of these assemblies, because they believe that they would gain a lot of votes from that. And this again brings back where a policy group, you know, from people such as Donald and Gareth, bringing these ideas forward so that the party can produce a policy and go forward. And that worked very, very well in that meeting. So I would be fully in support of Gareth's and Donald's and the lads in Ireland for what they want, because they're the people on the ground. They see what's going on, so they say, well, we want rid of these assemblies. So yes, I would fully support that, and if the membership is saying that, let's do it. And they believe that they're going to win a lot of support in Wales on this, with Liz is standing, and get votes for this for getting rid of the Welsh Assembly. So I think, you know, we should support that. Yeah, absolutely.
There's just been some confusion over here. Richard, there is no Scottish Assembly. This was an idea proposed in 1978. Parliament. This is an important distinction. Of course, we've got to get rid of these parliaments because they're ridiculous. The Scottish MP has got 2 votes. He's got one in the Scottish Parliament, one in Westminster. It's ridiculous. Just even to start to display becomes crazy. We become crazy as they are if we try to give any reason. They've got to be abolished. We've also got these, how shall I say, these are jobs for the boys assemblies. Now, Wales, we also need to get rid of it. This is not against devolution. England doesn't have any of these assemblies except in London. And I'm going to talk about London's special case. Londonistan, sorry, the Islamic Republic of Londonistan. Otherwise, we don't have any. And there's already devolution with county councils and so on. We don't need these assemblies as yet another level of government. This is just nonsense. I'm a businessman. You cut them out in London region. One of the first things I did, becoming regional chairman, is to cut out the whole middle ground of management and teams and committees and levels, districts, councils. You can't believe the things the UKIP had made up. That's us making up. So it was just branches, which is the important structure, and a region to accordingly coordinate. When they actually start physical fighting, stop it happening. Now, so I hope I'm clear. Get rid of all these assemblies all over the place, and have local government properly at local level, not at this regional level. You don't need yet another one. Let's refer to the Islamic Republic of Londonistan. They are supposedly there to oversee the mayor. Now, the mayor, the way the demographics are right now, is either Conservative or Labour. There is just no other choice. To get the requisite supermajority that is required to force the mayor to do anything by the London Assembly, you would have to have both Labour and Conservatives voting on the same side. So whether the mayor was Labour or Conservative, he'd have to have his lot voting against him. This is just telling you, it's complete nonsense. This is just an idea to give jobs to people who need to be chucked out and made to go into the private sector and start their own businesses or do whatever they want to do, but not be a drain on the public purse. I don't want to pay for it. So, devolve, thank you. Devolve, but no assemblies.
What we'll do with the next one is actually make kind of 2 questions into one, because they're closely linked. Just as a wee preface, when I was in the NEC, and I can say this filmed because it's not an issue, there was a vote of confidence in Gerard back in December, and I got inundated with emails saying that if Tommy Robinson had anything to do with the party, they were leaving instantly. 6 months later, we're having the issue we're having at the moment, which is obviously a delicate matter. And I'm getting emails from people that saying if Tommy Robinson isn't a member of the party, they're leaving instantly. So I'm not quite sure which group represents the main bulk, but there is obviously those who think that Gerard and Tommy are great, or if I can put it in that way, and those who think the opposite, if I can put it. And it's I'm not putting it as starkly as that, I'm just saying that's a kind of general consensus. So, the real question is very simple to each of the candidates. How would you heal? There's a little addendum to it. How would you heal the divisions within the party? Because I think it's fair to say, I won't say what it is, but I think it's fair to say that at least 2, if not of the 3 people here, represent one side or other of those factions. They can just identify that themselves if they wish to. How would you heal the divisions within the party? But kind of as an addendum to that, if people who have already left the party to join the Brexit party, and they suddenly decide they want to come back when Boris is elected leader of the Tories and the Brexit party no longer is a purpose, will we let them back? So how would you deal with the divisions in the party? How would you deal with people coming from the Brexit party back the way when they discovered it and sold a pup? Freddie, do you want to, you go first on this one, and then Richard, and then Mike.
We heal by using common sense and fairness, and that has been demonstrated. I would view myself certainly as a unity candidate because I speak to both sides. Look, I see both sides of this. I see the Tommy matter. I'm willing to concede, perhaps, using extreme language, that Tommy was a political prisoner after his first trial in 2018. There was no due process. There was no due process, and the conviction and the sentence was outrageous. However, when the Court of Appeal heard it again, I'm willing to prove to you that he was in fact rightly convicted on at least 2 of the 3 counts, probably 2. One of them he wasn't. He was not guilty of harassing or intimidating legislation, it didn't meet the standard. There is a lot of confusion and misspeaking about this, about the prison bags and about the reference to verdicts, and these are being misinterpreted. I know all the facts. There's no time to explain now. I will happily, as I have after every single hustings, told skeptics, and they have always agreed with me. Oh God, I didn't realise this. I explained this to Gerard back in September last year. I'm afraid he has forgotten and overlooked it. So we're going down routes which are just wrong in law and wrong in fact, unfortunately. But Tommy is a hero in some ways. He's a brave lad who is fighting for something good. This is a middle ground. Both of these things are true. Both sets are true. We can't allow ourselves to be defined by any one person. Not the leader, not Tommy, not any single person. We're a political party, not a street movement. As to people who've run off for the Brexit party, I'll happily borrow the ideas of Richard, because except that I was more strict. Richard is a generous man. Merely £200 to charge him, I'd charge him £500 to come back into UKIP, provided they haven't abused UKIP while they've gone off on their jaunt to the Brexit party, which is not a party. It is a one-man job. He is the NEC. You don't have any confusion between the leader and the NEC, because he is the NEC. There's no constitution. There's a brief document filed with the Electoral Commission, which is supposedly the party rules and constitution. It's not really a party. So, heal the wounds together. I would be proud for these two gentlemen to be with me. And Richard knows that I'm his regional chairman.
Richard.
Yes. I asked Gerard last summer, why did you do it? Why did you support Tommy at the rallies and so on? And he said, because it was the right thing to do. He made a moral judgment. We had someone in prison in this country who had been wrongly imprisoned. And it is right, even if it had been Nick Clegg and he was wrongly imprisoned, then I hope that we would all actually support a campaign to get him out of prison so that he could be locked up properly for the terrible things that he's done. Okay, so that's the first thing. It was a moral decision, no question. How do you, first of all, the ban that we have on people joining from prescribed organisations is very valuable to us as a party. It allows us to say, when we're constantly accused, wrongly as we are, we're wrongly accused of being racist over and over and over, and that ban allows us to say, no, we are a non-racist party. We do not allow people into this party who have those ideas, who have those views, and we can demonstrate it with the rules of the party. So we need to uphold those rules, and that's very important. So my view is that those rules should not be relaxed, but equally, those of us who understand that Tommy is fighting about something important, that he is trying to raise awareness of a terrible, terrible, brutal injustice that has happened in this country, with the police and social services actually not doing their jobs and letting people get away with terrible crimes, that UKIPers should be free to turn up and support him. UKIPers should be free to actually champion Tommy. He doesn't have to join the party. The issue of him joining the party will rip the party in half. So we simply have to say, there are people in the party that don't want it, there are people in the party that do want it, and we're just going to have to leave it. But anybody is free to go and support him, and that's it. And as regards £200 for Brexit Party people to come back, if I'm leader, I think, arguably we might persuade a few of them to pay £200 to come back to UKIP. With Freddy as leader, they'll be paying £500. I let you make your own mind about how many will come and pay.
We have to bring back these people from the Brexit Party. The Brexit Party is going to collapse. It's an absolute. It's a scam. This is what Farage does. It's a scam. This thing is a scam. What you've got there, as Freddie has said, it's not a party because there's only three directors of it, and one's Tace, one's Farage, and I don't even know who the other guy is. So there's only three directors. You can't join it. You can be an interested member for £25. You've got no say in what happens, and this is what Farage wanted. He always wanted this. In MEP meetings, we used to sit there and he'd say, right, we need to go down the 5-star movement. It has to become all done on the internet, online, and everything like that. We won't have no branches. Get rid of the branches. Get rid of the membership, and we'll go down that way. And anybody who wants to stand for a position in the party will get a £40,000 bond off them. And we said, no, we're not having that. This is not a democratic party. The way you're running it. We want membership, we want branches, we want everything else. So this is the way he wanted that UKIP to go. And he couldn't get his way, so he left and started his own so-called party and doing exactly the same thing as what he'd asked us to do. So he's got this thing running now where there's no checks and balances, and he can just do anything he wants, say anything he wants, and bring in the policies, our policy document. The list of membership that he's got was our membership list, and he's still using it, and we're still trying to prove that he's using it. So that's where his membership came from. But all of these people, when this collapsed, when Boris does the deal, and I honestly believe October the 31st he will do the deal. I don't know what the deal will be, but he will get this country out of the European Union because he has to save the Tory party. And a Tory will always look after a Tory. So that's what he's going to do. He will do the deal October the 31st. And then now those people are going to be looking for a home. We have to be that home for those people, and we have to welcome them back in again. And I believe we can do that. And on the other issue, I don't know when I'm out of time, on the other issue, I'm not going to speak to you and give you something that I hope you want so you'll vote for me. I'll tell you the truth. Tommy was a complete and utter mistake. It was the wrong direction for us to go. I told Gerard that, he wouldn't listen to me. We could have helped, defended whatever, but the direction Gerard went, we become a toxic party, and we've got to pull that back. As Richard said, we've got a proud constitution there that says we do not discriminate against people for race, religion, creed, colour, whatever. I'm proud to say that to people, that we are not a racist party. We do not discriminate against people, and I'm proud to stand on the street and say that to anybody that calls me racist, and I've been called racist many, many times. I walked with veterans in York, I think it was last year sometime, where the place was full of police, and the inspector said, "Mr. Hookem, come here." He said, "Yeah, we're here for you." I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, all these demonstrators are calling you racist. They're here demonstrating against you." So we had about 200 veterans, 60, 78-year-old blokes that saved the country, with all of the Greens and the nut jobs of the left and all the rest of it, shouting racist scum off our streets. Well, it went viral. It did them more damage than they was trying to do to us. So, I'm proud to defend this party and say that, we have a constitution that doesn't allow us to discriminate.
Janice, you need a bigger bell.
What we'll do, there's two more questions. There's actually a guy, or somebody has written a question which I think has been kind of answered, which uses words like illegitimate and so on, leader of a...
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
How do you feel about being an illegitimate leader of a directed party? I think...
I'm happy to take it.
Very happy, yeah, absolutely.
Well, hang on, all right.
Absolutely.
Well, all right.
Take it too.
Right, okay. Let me put that one down. Right, well, I've got three questions, but one of them surely is no more than a yes/no answer. What we'll do is... Oh, I know. Right. Maybe I'll forget that one then. Three questions, just three. Then everybody gets a wee 2-minute spiel to say sum up whatever they want to sum up. I don't mind, but we are running out a wee bit of time. I'll ask if anybody feels that there's anything that's not been covered. You okay?
That'd be smart.
Well, if anybody feels there's something that's been not covered, because I assure you it's not deliberate, and then we wrap up, and if you're able to stay, please do, and if not, that's that. Right, this is a yes/no, Freddy. This is a yes/no.
So you get 2 seconds.
So literally, this is not a speech. This is yes/no, and then we'll go into that other one that Richard. Will Katie Hopkins be invited to stand for UKIP in any future elections?
Yes.
Well,
Why not? Yeah.
Yes.
I'll say no, because she doesn't want to. She's got a very good media, presence, and she's earning lots of money. Why would she come in? I honestly don't think she would.
Okay.
But if she would is she
yes,
allowed?
no, yes, no.
Yes, no.
She's do everything what everybody else doesn't go to select.
Yes, no, mate.
Wiggle.
Well, all right. So there's two.
Well, I think it's a silly question.
Two yeses and a maybe.
No questions are silly, only answers.
No, but I was with her at the South-East last.
2 yeses and 1 maybe. All right. This is the question as it's read. I'm not saying I properly understand this, but Richard, and therefore he can answer first. This is the question. How do you? And then there's one more, and then that's it. How do you feel about being an illegitimate leader of a Is that you? Oh, David. How do you feel about being an illegitimate leader of a divided party if successful? Richard.
I think, like many UKIP members, I'm ashamed of what's happened as regards Gerard's nomination to stand for the leadership. He's put 27 years of his life in, and as I've said earlier, the members should be making that decision, not the NEC. If they had a problem, with him bringing the party into disrepute, as they claim, then they should have done something about it 3 months ago or 6 months ago, whenever it happened. Instead of suddenly bringing it in, it reminds me of what Coleridge said about Iago and Othello. It's the motive hunting of a motiveless malignity. They looked around for some way of stopping him, and they came up with a pretty inadequate answer. About a month ago, I was on television saying the reason I don't want to go to the Brexit party, and why you even asked me about that, is because it's not a democratic party. I'm a UKIPper because we're democratic. We vote for our branch chairman. We vote for our NEC. We vote for our leader. If we have a leader we don't like, we will turn up in Birmingham one day and we vote against him to get rid of him. And that's the way it should be. We are a truly grassroots party. And I made that argument on television. And now, a month later, I've got egg on my face. I put myself forward for this leadership when I thought Gerard wasn't going to stand. When he put his nomination and I saw he was standing, I withdrew immediately because I would vote for Gerard, I would support his campaign. He hasn't been a perfect leader, he's been a very, very good leader. Then they stopped him and said, well, you can come in again because you stood down for him. And so they've let me come in, but I would rather Gerard were here. And that's why I've asked him to be my deputy leader, and he's agreed to do it. So Gerard's wisdom will be on tap, on the telephone to me, if you vote for me.
Right. Okay. Do you want me to read the question?
No, I'll be very, very brief. This was a very difficult decision taken by the NEC, and I think Donald was in there. I support the NEC. The NEC was elected by you people. There was, they do this photograph and the 200 odd words. You people elected them. It was a democratic decision taken by them. It was a democratic decision taken by the NEC. Piers Walcott is getting a lot of stick from it. He agonised over this. He doesn't deserve the stick he's getting for it. The NEC don't deserve the stick that they're getting for it. It was a democratic decision. I stand by the NEC.
I'm in the same boat exactly that Richard is. I've collaborated with Gerard very closely on some big projects, including his 40 frequently asked questions, which was authored by Gerard and then approved and argued over with me for about 4 months, and I published it very widely. And Theresa May's office opened it at least 7 times, somebody in Theresa May's office. This is the 40 frequently asked questions, because when we send out emails with PDFs, we track what's going on. They've been rather smart at just downloading it once. So I vote with Gerard. Of course Gerard will be on tap as well. He's got a great deal of political experience, and he and I as well are quite different people, which means very often one can be a check or balance on the other. He is a man of complete integrity. Yeah, that is common. I would not do business with him otherwise. This issue of is it legitimate? Well, we are where we are. There's nothing more. This was not done in our name for any of us, including the candidate, in all fairness, who hasn't been able to make it because he became a father again yesterday. He too, while he's on the NEC, he played no part. He was recused himself. I think he couldn't have been there in any of the discussions. So we here have the people to have a go at aren't here for you to have a go at. We are where we are. Would you prefer UKIP to be rudderless? No. We've already seen what happens when Great Britain is rudderless, because SS Great Britain doesn't have a captain. It has a barnacle attached to its hull called Theresa May. And now there's going to be a scoundrel and blackguard attached to its rudder, which is Boris Johnson, I fear. Boris Johnson, who has clashed with me and almost jumped off the stage in rage, 19th of November 2014, because I beat him. And he almost left off. Anecdotes afterwards, I'll give all the references.
Okay.
It's about sex with vacuum cleaners.
Oh, how do you follow
He
that?
brought up the subject,
Right.
I didn't.
Right. The final question is kind of related to that question, which I will ask. Does anybody, I'll not ask you to ask him, does anybody have any questions that they do not think have been asked or answered?
Let's go on a bit longer, please, Donald.
Well, I'm not, don't misunderstand me, I'm not chasing people away. You're the lads that have come here.
Yeah, so
I'm
let's
just
get more time.
Right?
Let's have more time.
Right, okay. Well, I'm not...
I've only just begun.
Hang on.
Shut up.
Can we have your question?
Right, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to ask one. Have you got I'm not asking what the question is, but you do have a question that you think is not going to...
I've read it and sent it to you.
Oh, is that the one about the political correctness?
And there's two questions there. The top one would be more appropriate.
Right, I've not... Honestly, Stephen, I don't have that.
Just now it's
You're
short.
very perceptive.
Right, hang on, relax. Right, I'm going to ask the question that I was going to ask. Can you write, I'm not, if that, I assume that's yours, but that's the only one. Can you give Stephen a piece of paper to write down anything else? The question I was going to ask, which kind of links in with what we've just been talking about, it's not an academic question. It's actually crucial to this whole Gerard Batten thing. I'll ask Richard to answer it first, if that's all right. Freddy second, and Mike third, if that's okay. The question is very simple. How important is the National Executive Committee, or if you like the NEC, to UKIP? In other words, that includes, should it be abolished, should its powers be curbed, or should it be given the respect it deserves? That's the question. Richard, would you like to answer that?
It's very important. It's actually the board of the company that is UKIP, that UKIP operates as, and it's very important. And it is democratically elected. There's no question about that. There are talks of having a regional NEC. I'm not sure how well that will work, or whether it will frankly make any difference. I'm certain that Scotland would re-elect Donald because he's fantastic, and so there's no problems there. Wouldn't be much of a change, frankly. But there is a suggestion that it might be better if the company that is UKIP had a board of directors that were professional people and were the sort of people that you would normally have on a serious company board. And the NEC would be a separate elected board that would handle the political workings of the party. And I think that's probably a good idea, and certainly worth discussing and thinking about, and a change that might be worth making. The real problem with the NEC, I think, is that we receive a list of candidates, sometimes as many as 90 candidates. Often we don't know who they are. We don't have enough time or exposure to them to learn about them and know what they believe and how well they're going to represent us. So I think what needs fixing first and foremost is the process by which we elect our NEC. That process needs fixing. I think if we fix that process, then we will get on the NEC people who agree with us more and who we can rely on to make the right decisions on our behalf. But let me quickly say the NEC has made some very good decisions, for instance, helping us to get rid of Bolton, and also not allowing a particular party leader to put whoever he wanted at the top of candidate lists. And many of you will know what that story is about.
I'll ask you what you're going to ask, David, in a second. Freddie, if you want to answer that question.
Essentially, Richard is correctly mirrors my own sentiments on this. There is a misperception that regions are all the same size. By size, I'm talking about number of people in it. This is not true. There is a 3.5 to 1 ratio between the size, population-wise, of the smallest region to the one of the largest regions. I personally believe it's not South East, but actually London, which is the largest region, because there's more than 1 million people living there, in excess of the number in the official counts. So how do you then make an NEC up when you get disproportionality in its composition? The advantage of regional stuff is you actually get to know who you're choosing, and you choose the right one, because otherwise it's just pot luck. I view the NEC not as particularly wise or whatever, other than in the law of large numbers. You're like a jury. They're like a jury. And when they were applauded, as I did, for the correct decision, re Bolton standing up, I wrote a letter, which was sent to the NEC, leaked, unfortunately, by a candidate who's not here, a confidential letter to the NEC, telling them what to do, which Gerard then went and did. NEC did the right thing there. Let's not get angry with them overly, simply because they make a decision on the basis of some facts, some of which we don't know, including myself, I don't know, because they don't make a decision which we like. They are the most democratic part of UKIP. They are directly elected. No other body is directly elected by the membership. The leader is the exception, but he's not a body, though he has one. So we have, thank you, we have within UKIP a lot of democratic structures. The NEC is an important one. This is what separates us from the Brexit party, a big part of it. Nigel is the NEC, and a slight error made by, I'm not going to embarrass my compadre here by identifying him, but it's not that they have a low level of membership, i.e. of low status of membership in the Brexit Party. They don't have any membership at all. You're just subscribers like to a magazine. So you have no rights whatsoever. You couldn't move a court because you're just a subscriber. You have no more rights than somebody who subscribes to The Guardian to go and force The Guardian to do different things. A court would just laugh at you. Your case wouldn't even be entertained. And there's a reason for it. So don't let's chuck out our NEC, baby in bathwater type stuff and rearranging deck chairs. We've got bigger problems. Get a leader who'll fight for you.
Mike.
Thank you. Reiterating a lot of what these two just said. The NEC are directors of the company. They are a legal entity. We need them, but they are very, very important. You will see in there how the structure I want to change, and it mentions a board of directors and a regional NEC. I fought for over 10 years to have a regional NEC because it was always, when I first joined 2007, 2008, it was always elected South East, South West. We never got anybody in Yorkshire, never got a representative. So I said we need a regional representation. We won the debate because we had a debate at the Doncaster conference, the first one, and the membership won that. And Crowther and Farage just overrode it. They didn't want it because that was the membership having a say in how the party was run, and Farage didn't want that. So they just overruled it, and it never happened. We need a regional representation, and how I want to see it run is that if you want to stand for that regional NEC, get out to the branches, start talking to the membership, say I want to stand and represent you. So they've seen you, they know who you are, you're speaking to them, and they know if you want to, if they want to vote for you, rather than just a photograph of your wedding 40 years ago and 250 words that bear no resemblance whatsoever to you. So you're actually seeing the people that you're going to vote for. That's how I want it done. But again, it's about getting the information from the membership up to the headshed and all the way back down again. It can work, and it must work because we have to get more professional. This party must become more professional, and it's restructuring of the party, and that's what we do, and part of that is a regional representation.
I think it's slightly less time there, Richard. Have you anything that you're right on that one? Right, that's
Yeah, fine.
Okay, well, I've got, sorry David, you had...
I just wanted to pick up on Richard's point. He's talking about a corporate management structure. We have a board, but that board's accountable. That's accountable to the shareholders. So there needs to be a level of accountability to the members. So what appears to have happened is an abuse of power, where it's been taken too far, and you've excluded Gerard from a democratic process that everyone had a right to partake in. You've excluded the members from this.
But as the reason the reason we can't talk about that in any detail.
Well, you can't talk about it. I can.
We can.
Well, no, you
not
can't.
you.
Well, I would suggest politely that you can't, is because solicitors are involved.
Well,
It doesn't affect us.
I want to have my say.
No, I think I understand your point.
May I make a technical point? Sorry, I never put on this accountant's hat because I'm not an accountant. I'm just not. I'm a business person.
Yes.
But the company does not have members per se. It's a company limited by guarantee. It's a different type of company. But the board, they are accountable in a non-legal sense, and the accountability is derived when you come to re-elect them. If you don't like their decisions, boot them out.
That's
Kick
exactly
them out.
the point.
Kick them out. Check them out. Check them out.
Ultimately, morally accountable.
Yeah.
But that's in time.
Yeah.
The damage has been done. The members' choice has been suppressed.
But
It's crooked dealing.
right, no, that's not fair. The fact is there will be an NEC election in November.
Yes.
In November, which is important. I look forward to seeing you contesting it.
Okay, well,
Please do, and once that's not that's.
I left the non-democratic party.
I'll vote for you. No, I mean that just as it sounds. I don't
That's
mean
called
that.
treating.
Right, but you, I'm not disputing of a legitimate point. It's just
No suggestion.
the reason why it's difficult to talk about is because of the other side. If you want to put it that
The
way.
reason it's difficult to talk about is because it's embarrassing.
No,
It's not.
It's not embarrassing.
And
It's not embarrassing.
you'll have
It's not.
received the solicitor's letter.
The invidious position, may I defend
No,
them for a
it's-
second? The invidious position in which these members face themselves, look, there's nothing to do with me, I'm just trying to be fair over here, is sometimes they want to tell you stuff, but they can't tell you
Well,
because they'll be sued themselves
that's
by
exactly
the
the
party.
point. You
Because
can't-
now it's subject
as Ian has just
let
said.
me chair this meeting from now on and they will remove all of this. I'm sure my fellow
sure
two
you-
candidates
no,
wouldn't mind.
we'll then end up having a...
They will be free of... Yes,
No,
there is a problem.
I appreciate your assistance. Well, can we
Which is
do
mine
that?
as well, by the
can
way,
we
which
do
I
that-
share with you.
Can we do that informally off the record? Well,
That's
come
not
on,
Hustings.
please.
This is Hustings, this is not a
This is
board
Hustings.
meeting of the company.
We're having a leadership hustings, and
Mine is one of the candidates. So
Yeah, 'cause he's
well, mine
the
is
first never-
well, it's mine is, yeah, but well,
He's breastfeeding.
right. Hang on, sorry, John. Don't,
One-
you're not going to say
one-
anything.
One phrase here, as far as the NEC and all this stuff's concerned.
Yeah.
If we wind back about 18 months, we had Henry Bolton saying,
Yes.
bin the NEC.
Bin it.
And
Yeah.
Gerard revered the NEC at that EGM. The NEC
Yeah,
absolutely.
was wonderful, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. Now that the NEC have voted a different way on this particular occasion, whoever happens to be an acolyte of Gerard is now saying, bin the NEC.
Yeah, John, that's a very fair point. A very fair point. But
There was another leader used
Can I
to do
answer
that.
that?
That was Mr. Farage. He used to say they're just a bunch of people that turn up with the sandwiches.
We've been there before with
Can I,
Stephen Wolf.
sorry, can I
Sorry,
answer
Rich.
that point? Because this is actually a falsity. I don't think Gerard's position is that the NEC should be binned. So be careful how you present
I didn't
this.
say he said that,
Right.
but a lot of his supporters are saying that now.
yeah.
Well, they may. Let me make one other point: that NEC members who contributed to this vote against Gerard's standing may or may not know things that you and I don't know.
yeah.
So we have to accept that and understand that this issue is not going to be resolved in this room now.
Yes, that's very fair.
Okay.
This is a
Very
pressure
fair.
release
Very
valve.
fair. Right. Hang on. Right.
I can tell you a lot.
I think
I
I can tell you a lot more.
No, right. The last question, which is Stephen's question, which I hope I get correctly, I'll read it as he's written it. I think the political correctness, you don't think that's been dealt with? No.
That's been dealt with.
That's been dealt with.
Two separate
Right. So the question that Stephen is asking is to the leadership candidates is the last question. I will ask if there's anything not been covered, and then each candidate will be given 2 minutes to just give a resume. But you've no bell. Bell's broken. The question is: would we, UKIP, rebrand following Brexit? So basically, well, you just, if I'm missing that, you tell me what you want. What the question
I
is.
know that, would we consider rebranding in any way after Brexit?
So you're assuming Brexit will happen, and if it
Let's
happens,
just say it has happened.
it has happened, will we rebrand? Will UKIP rebrand? That's the question. Freddie, do you want to answer that one? 2 minutes.
Brexit party is the one with the problem. We don't have a problem because Brexit is very specific. It's using a term which was actually coined, you may not know this, by another of our heroes, not one of the great recruiting sergeants for UKIP back in the good old days, which is David Cameron. Yeah, we've got to thank a vote of thanks to Cameron, to Osborne, to Theresa May, to Corbyn, etc. But he coined the word Brexit. Brexit is very clear: Britain exiting the EU. Yep, and people will agree it exited at some point or other. However, with the Independence Party, independence is much more wide-ranging. It's a word that we can dovetail into freedom, which is a concept which is not going to go away. Perpetual stuff. Rebrandings are bad. You spent 20 years trying to get this back. All the stuff, that Lenny the Lion stuff, if you want to tell me, turn the cameras off and I'll tell you what really happened. And Mike Hookem will nod, I suspect, because this is what really happened. Sometimes there have been attempts made within our party to sabotage us. By people whose alliance. Oh, never! Good Lord! And we have evidence. Look at the 2012 mayoral election, where the candidate went to bed thinking he's the candidate for UKIP. He's signed all the documents, but just left other people in UKIP to do it. And he wakes up in the morning, looks at the published notice. This is the candidate for UKIP in the London mayoral election 2012, and he finds he's the candidate for a party that he believes doesn't exist, called Fresh Choice for London. You can't get that happening without somebody having registered the party. That's the degree of sabotage that's been going on. So, in the current, I think my point is.
You'll get. Well, do you want? Are you going to have? But you have your wee spiel then.
I want to know why I'm sabotaging the past.
You're not sabotaging it. No, Mike. You were left out of the tent, you see. You thought you were in the tent, but you were out of it.
Shut up.
Oh, yes, you were. Well, if you were in the tent, then you were sabotaging it.
I think at some point in the future, yes, we probably will rebrand, maybe slightly changing colour schemes or whatever it needs. But the Labour Party did it, the Tories have done it in the past. I think we need to do it. Lenny the Lion cost the party £10,000. That was Steve Crowther that cost us that. He never asked anybody. He did that, and it was a fixed vote at the conference. And it was useless, and nobody wanted it. I didn't like it. I didn't want it. The FA's got it. ING Bank in Brussels has the same Lenny the Lion thing. So it was rubbish. So, but yes, I believe at some point in the future there may be some rebranding, some restructuring a bit, but it just keeps everything fresh, doesn't it? It keeps it moving. I mean, Labour did it, as I say, Conservatives did it, just to keep things fresh, and but not at the present moment. At the present moment, they actually say that branding there is worth £5 million in advertising. So, we need to keep it at the moment, but I can't say, well, in the future it won't happen. I think maybe it will, but it'll be a long way down the road.
Richard.
Yes. The first thing that we need to do when it comes to rebranding is that we need to stop producing stuff like this. Right? Okay? Look.
Detailed
Okay?
CVs are very dangerous.
We need to stop producing stuff like this. We need to start producing stuff where the actual message gets out, because the actual message is written so that people can't miss it and people understand what the message is. We need to arouse people's interest in what we stand for and get our real political message out there with simple language, big words, and the invitation to actually read, so that they look at it and think, oh, I might read that. The second issue here is that some people have been talking about whether the party should change its name, and that, I think, would be a disaster. We are the United Kingdom Independence Party, and independence is a massive word. There are so many ways that this country needs to be independent. There are so many ways that each of us as individuals and as families can be more independent. We need to encourage people to be independent of welfare. We need to encourage people to be independent of thought. We need to encourage this country to be independent of so many factors, even beyond these shores, that are trying to bully us. It goes into international affairs. It goes into the politics of socialism, which is creeping through the West and causing huge problems. And of course, it also is independence from Islam. And we need to have independence as the key binding strategy and philosophy of this party. Let's not rebrand. We've got a great party name. Let's keep doing it.
Okay, Richard.
Brief rebuttal.
No, hang on. You'll get a chance to be a rebuttal.
Rebuttal.
You
will
will
mentioned
get
me just now. This is a CV. This is not a political document sent out. Some of us have done quite a lot.
It has a UKIP brand. It has UKIP branding on it, and we must not allow documents to go out to the public that have UKIP branding on one side and that on the other side.
Right.
This is shooting yourself in the foot, right. Richard. Where's your CV?
It's 4:45.
Where's your CV?
It's 4:45. Hang on, just a second. It's 4:45. We get kicked out at 5 o'clock.
No, we won't get kicked out. We're independent.
Right. So I was going to suggest. Sorry, what were you going to say? Not a long story. Just what were you going to say?
I've heard nothing about many of the candidates about fighting against climate bullshit.
Well, we haven't been asked the questions. I'm longing for it.
Right. Okay, that's a fair point. Is there any other questions that have not been covered? I don't need to ask the question. Just give me a vague outline of what the issue is.
I was going to ask, what would you do to give young independents a voice if you were elected leader?
All right, hang on. Well, we'll come to that. So we've got young independents, climate change, anything else?
International trade opportunities in this brave new world.
International trade opportunities. Right, hang on, right. So if I say that each person's got 5 minutes to say what they want, but bearing in mind what these three gentlemen have just said, possibly cover young independence, climate change and international trade opportunities, And does anybody mind which order you go in? At the end, I'll say the thanks. Right, Mike, do you want to go first then? 5 minutes. You got a...
Trade, yes, very important. Once we leave the European Union, we will leave the European Union. We should trade with the rest of the world, and if it's on WTO, so be it. We need to go out into the Commonwealth and start working with those people again. There's many countries that want to trade with us. They're all lining up there. China, America, Australia, all these countries there. Very important for our economy that we do them trade deals, and I see a bright future for that. YIs, very important YIs. We need to keep them on board. We need to help them, support them, because they are our future. And as a leader, I would be getting involved with those and making sure that they grow and their ideas come through. Climate change, I was asked climate change in Bolton. They come up and said, what's your opinion on man-made climate change? And when I said, well, I think climate change is happening, I said, whether it's man-made, the jury's still out. Well, he nearly tripped over. That's my honest belief. I think climate change is happening. Whether it's man-made, I think it's the jury's out there. I remember in the 70s where somebody said we were all going to freeze to death. I bought an overcoat, and now they said we're all going to sweat. So they changed their mind. Anybody who's a scientist who said that's it, that is a decision, and this is what's going to happen. Well, science moves. It keeps moving. It keeps evolving. They keep asking questions. It keeps changing, and I think that's what's happening. I mean, where I come from, near Lincoln, there, the Romans there was growing vineyards, because it was that warm. So we're on a living planet, and it's changing, and climate changes. Whether it says it's caused a climate change, personally, I don't think so. But I want the scientists to keep asking and keep questioning and keep giving us the information on that. Do you want anything else on that, or do you want to talk about mine?
No, just you sum up anything you feel you want to say.
As leader, I want to see this party go forward. I want to see it become an electoral threat once again. I want to see a complete restructure of the party. I want to see more information coming from the membership and more involvement of the membership. I want to see policies coming through from all of these, the membership there, that we've got a lot of skills in. It's been totally ignored in the past. I want to see more women coming through to be our spokesmen. That's been ignored for a long while. And there's lots of changes I'd like to see with this party. I believe we can be a winning threat once again. I believe we can be a winning team, and team is what I want. I want to see. There's no I in team. We have to work as a team, and I believe as a leader I can drive that forward, the party forward, to become once again an electoral threat out there on the streets, leafleting, using Richard's app that is going to give for nothing to me, hopefully, if I become leader. But the thing with the app is, it's very good having an app and telling you which street's going to vote for you, but if you haven't got people to knock on the door and say, are you still voting for me? Can I take you to the polling station tonight? And doing that, without the membership, the app is useless. So we need membership. We need more people out there. We need more people that know how to campaign. All those people have gone. We need to get them back in. We've got a couple of areas that are successful. Durham, Derby, Sunderland, areas like that have been successful. But that's got to be right across the country. We need people back in, and I believe those will come back from the Brexit Party, rejoin us. But we need to build our membership, and we will do that by giving them common sense policies that they can follow.
Okay, mate. Richard.
Yes, thank you. First of all, when it comes to the YI, it's fantastic that we've got young people coming into the party. We are the second most popular party amongst 18 to 24-year-olds, according to a Survation poll, and our young independents have got fantastic skills, and we're starting to see that really go out on social media. We've got a real presence, and we need to encourage that, absolutely. One of the things that's going to encourage that is that in the software that I am developing, we're going to have a glory rating. Everybody is actually going to have a measure of how much they contribute, and if you get competitive about that, great. Get competitive and earn more glory than anybody else. You will get glory for standing for the party in an election or being an agent. You will get glory for being a branch officer. You will get glory for all sorts of roles. You will get glory for canvassing. You will get glory for being upvoted on the policy forum. If a policy of yours is adopted or accepted, you will gain glory. And you will also get glory if you take on a role in the Young Independents, an official role. So that will give people incentives. What does it buy you? It buys you the ability to be heard more within the party. It buys you the ability to vote things up and bring things to the attention of the party leadership and the NEC. So that's going to be an incentive. When I went to one of my BBC interviews last month, a great guy called Eric came with me, and he's a very alternative character, and we went and had a beer afterwards, and he photographed us, and we tweeted, Boomer Millennial Alliance. I'm a boomer, I was born in the 60s. Eric is 21, I think, and he's almost a millennial or even Zoomer. It's a Boomer-Zoomer alliance. And we get on great. He's fantastically well-informed, and it's a great relationship. We're having to bridge over an age group where we don't have as much support. We've got fewer people in there, but we're going to make a Zoomer-Boomer bridge to make sure that we all understand each other. And these youngsters are doing this because they're rebelling, because they realise that their parents are brainwashed by years of nonsense from the BBC and from their schools and universities and so on. And they've recognised that to rebel now, you have to think for yourself. And if you think for yourself, then you're an independent thinker, you're a UKIP person. So that's them. Climate change. Well, we all know, and I agree with what Mike said, the jury is out on that. In Scotland, possibly people look at the prospect of a bit of warming and think it wouldn't be such a bad thing. But the reality is that we don't know what the climate's going to do. When I was a child, everybody was bothered about this ice age, and you used to see scientists on the telly warning it was doom. 20 years, ice age. None of that has happened. The truth is that the models aren't working. We can't rely on it, and we need to have open minds about that. And I do have an open mind about it. The output of the sun is the thing that people don't talk about nearly enough. It looks like the output of the sun may be the key driver of global climate, and we don't know how to control that, and we probably never will. So from that point of view, we're on our own. The issue of building our vote, we need to also try to get Labour, traditional Labour supporters to support us, and they will come to us. We need to target them because their party is, frankly, in free fall.
5 minutes, Freddy, and you can do your rebuttal.
But, Richard, we're not doing it for glory. We're doing it because it's the right thing to do. But yes, that was a debating point. I know exactly what Richard meant. But here we're seeing why I have to be leader. I can't walk on water, but I know where the stones are. Because on the media, it wouldn't be a collegiate Freddy who says, Richard, I misrepresented you there, because he's talking about glory to get your voice heard more. And it's precisely this. I'm a software guy as well. I have 150 programmers working with me, not for me, but I was the boss and I made most of the money. Eric, who Richard mentioned, I think he's 22 actually, not 21. He's Eric Siva-Jyothi. I'm grooming him to be a branch chairman because he's very good at it. And there's the age gap is 10 more years in our case, and there's just no issue in communication. I probably never grew up properly, and just as well. Now, climate change. I'm a physicist with a first-class degree in physics and holding record marks in various papers which are still records 40 years later because it's hard to beat 100%. Climate change is bogus and nonsense, this stuff. We don't know. It's only a 1 in 10,000, one part in 10,000 increase in carbon dioxide levels. As to methane, another important gas, it's to do with cows farting. Stop eating red meat, mate. They won't be for cows. Have chickens. Chickens don't fart very much. Simple as that. We tell the truth. Yeah, I can use posh words for this as well, which I would not if the mediums did it, but you're there. Now, as to international trade and all this is very simple. As every fool knows, 200 is a lot bigger than 27. Yeah? Why the hell are we constrained to trading with 27 people when we can trade with 200? And these are countries. There are roughly 200 in the world. Depends whether you count Nagorno-Karabakh as a country or whatever. If it's 170, I'd be very safe. 200 is probably a max figure over here. Young independents, well, you're the future. You're going to be looking after me when I need to be in a home, mate. I better get on your right side. Simple as that. You've got new, fresh ideas, and you're looking at it from a different perspective. Anyone who thinks he knows it all is an idiot. I've got this reputation of knowing a lot, but the most important thing I know is that I know nothing. I know nothing compared to the great vastness that I do not know. And that perception makes me humble and willing to listen, even to people I think I know more than on that subject, because they may give me a different perspective on it. I'm a prolific communicator. I've sent out 3 million emails, not to 3 million different people, that'll be good, in the year since 2015. That's why you've seen this branding, and when you've got a face as ugly or distinctive as mine, you keep keep on using it because people remember it. Those emails had those headers. I've tried to communicate fairly and neutrally on UKIP matters, trying to steer a middle course, often to unite factions. This is not a first time that we're in this mess. We've been it with Wolf and so on, with Stephen Wolf and the punch that didn't happen when Hookem didn't hook him, but was wrongly accused of something very foul. Such things are very bad. Let's go on to, I was driving up at high, but I'm sure legal in some way, speed, all the way up to Scotland this morning. I passed a huge, I don't know what the collective noun for wind farms is, wind turbines, it's probably a rude word. It's an obscenity of wind farms. It's like a flange of baboons. Yep. They're all going along. This thing is mad. The wind stops blowing without notice almost over vast swathes of continents. The wind stops blowing. It just stops everywhere because the pressure differentials have changed. Therefore, you have maybe 5 minutes notice if you're lucky before you're going to have no electricity. So how much time does it take to start up a coal-fired or nuclear-fired power station, the best ones, from nothing? It takes a lot more than 5 minutes. They've got to be running at 80 or 90% capacity all the time to step in when the wind stops blowing. So the whole thing is mad. Yeah, they're just crazy. Crazy people. We've got kettles. Kettles are supposed to be limited in their power, while in fact having them higher power, kettles would actually save electricity because there's less time for ambient heat loss. There's any amount of this nonsense going on. You need a scientist who will argue with them, and they will not dare to ask the question. First place, if they do, they'll be handed their guts for garters. And I'll do it with speed and alacrity. Thank you, Donald, for your indulgence, Janice as well, and my two very, very worthy contenders and opponents.